Hello, I'm Bill Lockwood. This is Writing for the Bible Brand. I'm not writing this evening, obviously, but I do have Bodell's Blue Boone, who's on my left, the mother. And one of the first times this baby's been haltered. We don't have a baby name for it yet, but her daddy is Woody B. Tough. Bodell's Blue Boone is her mother. And so we'll see how this goes for just a minute. But I wanted to talk for just a moment about discipline, what the Bible teaches regarding discipline, and that is passage I want to turn attention to it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and the verses 24. Here Paul's talking about how he runs the Christian race, and he says it this way: "Know ye not that they that run in a race run all, but only one receives the prize? Even so run, that you might attain." Notice carefully, he says, everybody's running. Everybody's running the race, everybody's trying, but only one receives the prize. He wants you to run that way. Even so run. Run this way, that you might attain. Then he tells us this regarding, in the next verse, he tells us, "Every man that contends in the games practices self-discipline," or practices discipline of himself. What does that mean to say? That is simply to tell us that he's talking about the Olympic Games or some athletic contest in which a person is actually participating in an athletic contest, and they exercise self-control. This is the ASV now. Self-control in all things. In everything they practice self-control. You've seen, for example, the movie Rocky, and where Rocky is, the older movie where Rocky was ready to fight, and he would drink, 4 in the morning he would drink, I guess several eggs in a glass, and then he would run in Philadelphia, and he couldn't run at first, and then he ran later. But that's self-discipline, and that's what Paul's saying. They that contend in the games, they exercise self-control in all things. That is, they just put everything they have into it. So he says, "Even so run, that you may attain. They that contend in the games exercise self-control in all things." Then he says this: "Therefore so I run." This is the way I run. "And so fight I." So I run, he says, not aimlessly, not just running here and there and just jogging along. I have a goal, and he says that's what I'm running for, that goal. And then he says, "So fight I." That is, he's talking about the boxer, the pugilist. He says, "as not beating the air." That means I make my blows land. He's using an athletic figure to refer to the Christian life and Christian living and the discipline. And so then he tells us finally in verse 27, he tells us that this is the way he runs, in order that he might not be rejected of all men. "After I have preached to others, lest after I preach to others, I myself might be rejected." That is to say, it's possible that a Christian man and a Christian woman could not put the diligence, the due diligence and discipline into the work of Christianity and to be faithful to Christ, and they end up losing their souls. That is, they don't make the goal, they don't attain the goal. Now, I wanted to look at that regarding discipline. We have a society right now that is completely out of control discipline-wise. But not simply, I'm not just talking about the riots in the streets. I'm talking about people who claim to be followers of Jesus Christ, but we spend our time in so many games and so many things that we're playing with, and sports and all these things that we're having fun doing. We just have so much fun, all these things. The point simply is, and it's not to say that we can't have recreation, we can't take time out to do what we need to do and to have fun and to enjoy life a little bit. But the point simply is, we have invested too much in fun and games, just too much in non-disciplined living, non-disciplined life. And that's what happens to us in Christ. And that is, so for example, you can look at the football stadiums and they're always filled. Baseball stadiums, they're filled to capacity. But that's not the case in the churches, is it? That's not the case when you come to a sporting event, a sporting thing, then that's what we have. That's what we have going on. Well, you think about it for just a moment. Vladimir Lenin said this. That's one of the leaders of communism of yesteryear. He pointed out very plainly, he said, "You just give me a few men who are dedicated, I'll take the world." That is, he knew that there were many communists who would not be dedicated. They would not have what it takes to go all the distance. But he says, "You give me a few and I will conquer the world." Thomas Edison, It is said that he would nap and he would be able to wake up from his nap whenever he wanted to, simply because he had disciplined himself to put his time and his effort into work. So it is John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church. John Wesley arose at 4 o'clock every single morning in order that he might be able to preach. He says, up at 4 and preach at 5. Alexander Campbell, who is a leader in the Churches of Christ of yesteryear, Alexander Campbell awoke from sleep at 4 in the morning. It was 4 in the morning, get up, and he studied. Uh-oh, look out. He studied 16 hours a day. That's amazing, isn't it? You know, today, there are a lot of people in the youth, for example. I teach school as well as preach the gospel. And in teaching school, I have a lot of young people who tell me, well, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a pilot. They'll never make it. Why? They might have a desire, but they're just kind of cruising through life, and they don't have the discipline that it takes to attain the goal. And so also it is with Christian people. Too frequently, there are Christian people who are not going to make it. That is, they may be in Christ, but they're going to fall by the wayside because they have not the discipline to go through unto the end. So Paul tells us very plainly, after I preach to others, I myself might be rejected. Let's be disciplined people. Christian people need to be disciplined to do what is right, to live a right life, to study the gospel. Oh, and she's biting me in the back or nibbling on me. And do what we need to do in order to please Christ. That's what I mean by riding for the Bible brand. We're not riding tonight. Maybe one day we ride this one. We'll see. Thank you for listening.